Today I want to speak about President Donald Trump's tariffs. He called it Liberation Day. And over 180 countries have been slammed tariffs. Tariffs have been increased apart from Mexico and Canada, whose issues he previously had handled. Trump continues to hold his argument that there's no reciprocity in this tariff thing, with some countries that have enjoyed relatively trade relationship with America with commensurate tariffs. And this time, Nigeria has been slammed 14%. South Africa has been slammed 30%. And for me, it's quite dicey. Could Trump be right? Could Trump be overreaching in his decision here? Because he argued that China is slamming the US 60% for the China market, whereas they get like insignificant percentage when you look at these things. And South Africa as well, that is taking 30%. It looks like it's a trade war. But the thing I say around the South African deal is that South African market is such that you can't even bring in imported cars, brand new cars into the South African market. So South Africa guards her market jealously. However, who own the investments in South Africa? The white farmers, the other investments that include manufacturing and all that. These are the white minorities, the ones Trump has stood in their defense.
Wait a minute.
So it's not like the black South African nation that really owns the South African economy. So it's a bit tricky and funny. And those whom Trump stood up to defend are the people who are at the receiving end of his policy. And this is what it might look like. Maybe he doesn't know the geography and the politics of South Africa as such.
What do you mean by that?
If he knew, maybe his approach towards South Africa wouldn't have been this very stiff. And when you look at countries like Nigeria, Nigeria's trade partner significantly is America when you talk about the crude oil. But what does Nigeria really buy from the US market? And this is where corruption comes in. Most of the goods that come into Nigeria from the US don't come straight in through our ports. So when you're talking about reciprocity, other countries that may have escaped from Trump's tariffs or have gotten very little, or that may have gotten not significant tariffs added to what they're already paying, could have been absorbing Nigeria's trade. Because Nigeria borders countries like Benin, Togo. And so our imports from the US market most times don't even come in directly through our ports. They go through Togo and Benin Republic, thereby absorbing what ordinarily should have shown as the trade buck from the US. This is because the Nigerian system is so corrupt that you can't import things freely into the Nigerian market from most parts of the world. So you have to navigate through Benin Republic, Togo, and the rest of Africa. You see how corruption is affecting the Nigerian market? I don't think that if Nigeria was importing directly, instead of going through the Togo-Benin route, Nigeria would have been battling with all this 14% increase in tariffs. This is one of the reasons why corruption affects everyone. And this is one of the reasons why we need to break barriers, address corruption, because if you don't kill corruption, corruption will kill that nation. Maybe Nigeria would have averted the tariff war. Nigerian ports were a lot transparent, and most goods that land in Togo and Benin were landing, arriving in Nigeria. Nigeria imports a lot of cars from the US. A lot of manufacturing and products from the US markets land in Nigeria. They go through Benin, Togo, and other neighboring countries, and they find their way in Nigeria because the cost of dealing with their ports is a lot simpler and they are straightforward. So you see why this trade thing, the tariffs, are a bit complicated, and it's something that is quite interesting as well. I don't know how and why Trump wants to get himself entangled in these trade wars, but will this also augur well for the US market? Will it also do well for the stock market and investments in the US? I don't know how far Trump intends to go with this whole tariff thing, but Europe is already responding, China and the rest of the world. And it's looking like they're all pitched against the US. Trump, I don't know what he's trying to get at, but these trade tariffs, these tariffs and the debate and justification for the reciprocity that he's trying to impose on other parts of the world, well, he could have some points, because it makes no sense that I'm paying 5% to your market and you may not be paying anything important to my market. You may not be also paying almost something close to what you are asking me to pay. The AGOA project, which is the African Growth Opportunity Act, benefited countries like South Africa maximally. Ghana also benefited a lot because Ghana imports a lot of yams to America, to Europe, and the rest of the world. But Nigeria, that is also importing a lot for America, Nigeria does not import directly. It imports through other ports. And this is also not adding up to what Nigeria pays to the US in terms of tariffs. Today, as we speak, other countries are going to be enjoying such benefits. And if they were going to be slamming them, let's say 20%, they probably will be slamming them like 5%. Imagine if the bulk of such trade came directly into Nigeria. Nigeria would have benefited a lot, and who knows, maybe there wouldn't have been any sort of tariffs, or could have been a lot less than what Nigeria has been slammed. That is a typical example of what corruption does to any system. Countries like Nigeria may have to rethink their strategy of trade, because if there's a trade deficit like it's beginning to appear, it shows that we are also not patronizing the markets more. But that's truly not the case. Countries like Nigeria and a few other countries that I saw on the list may not have been doing so. But corruption have made it so difficult for them to trade directly, to ship directly to these destinations in such a manner that a lot of transparencies will remove bottlenecks, and it's a lot easier and faster for importers to quickly do business with countries like America directly. If you take bulk of the trade that goes to Togo and Benin Republic market, it will collapse such economies. I understand that there's need for Africans to trade within the continent, but sometimes not at the detriment of any nation. As it is, corruption is the major reason why countries like Nigeria is being slammed 14%, because there's no way Trump can argue that Nigerian trade deficit is that much that we need to pay 14%. Nigerians import a lot from the US. It might not be directly through the parts of the neighboring countries, and this is what we are beginning to see. I don't know how President Bola Ahmed Tinubu intends to decongest the port, untie the bottlenecks, and make it easy for importers to transact businesses. This 14% tariff will further affect businesses. It will further jack up the prices of goods and services for countries where tariffs are high. America itself might not be left out of these trade wars. America will pay dearly for what is happening through reciprocity, and the consumers as well. So it's a tough time for the rest of the world and America itself as the trade war continues. I'd love to read your thoughts about these tariffs, and I hope to see you in the next videos.